Hello and welcome to coverage of the Magic Online Championship. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas, and it's time for the finals. That's right, these players are playing for a huge prize pool. $25,000 is going to go to first place, but that's not all, Luis. There's a lot more on the line, too.
Yeah, the winner is going to get platinum status in the Pro Players Club, as well as qualified for the World Championship this year, 2016, and Magic Online Championship next year.
Such a huge upside to getting first. Second place is going to get $17,000. Nothing to sneeze at. But, man, such a big difference here for these players. And, you know, I got to say, you know, you play on Magic Online. This is the pinnacle. This is the peak of what you can do as a Magic Online player. You know, you played an 8-4 draft. It's a little higher here. And they've chosen Standard for their first match. We're going to be watching up to 3 matches. That's right, not just games, but full matches to decide our winner here of 3 different constructed formats, Modern, Legacy, and Standard. They've chosen Standard here. On the bottom side of the screen, you can see the 4-color right deck here on the bottom for Niels Norlander. On the top, it's going to be red-green ramp. We call it Goggles ramp because it uses Pyromancer's goggles as well. So how are things shaping up as far as this game goes?
Here we're seeing Dranyar Temple really show its stuff, as Alexander kept a hand that doesn't have any ramp spells, except it gets to use Tormenting Voice to discard Dranyar Temple.
Boom,
and then next
spell.
turn, pay 3 mana, return it to play, and start trying to ramp out a World Breaker. Meanwhile, we saw Niels mulligan a 1-land hand into a pretty solid hand that can go 2-drop into Catacomb Sifter, into Collected Company.
Finds that turn 2 Loam Dryad here.
Yeah, that would have been
sad about that.
Really good on turn 1. Had he not mulliganed, he would have had it. He would have been able to go turn 1, Loam Dryad, turn 2, Elvish Visionary, turn 3, Company, but this is still a pretty solid start.
Now, you were saying earlier, Luis, that you felt like this was a tough matchup for Niels.
It is. Partially it hinges on how many of the sweepers Alexander draws, but the fact that Alexander goes over the top even of your good combo is unfortunate, because like World Breaker can take out Cryptolith Rites, and Atarka can wipe your side of the board. Setting up Fall of the Titans to kill two creatures, or with Goggles 4 creatures, it can be really tough.
There's also Chandra.
Chandra is another sweeper. So between the 2 Chandras and the Kozilek's Return and then the Atarkas, Alexander's got a lot of ways to deal with Niels' threats.
Yeah, multiple threats. All right, Tireless Tracker, pretty tame start here. He opts not to get the Drownyard Temple back or to keep playing more Tormenting Voices here. Instead, just going to get a Tireless Tracker down. He's got a land drop guaranteed next turn with the Drownyard Temple in hand.
So now Niels has decided whether he wants to play Eldrazi Displacer or Catacomb Sifter. Sifter tends to be the safer play, especially as you're playing against a removal-heavy deck. And either way, Tireless Tracker is unlikely to get a good attack in next turn. So what is Ivanov looking to do next turn? He wants to bring back Dranyar Temple, but if he does, he's not able to cast Tormenting Voice. Though he does have a Kozilek's Return now, which is interesting.
That is interesting. He's going to want to get his Tireless Tracker out of Kozilek's Return range. He also can just discard it to Tormenting Voice. Having a Kozilek's Return in the graveyard is often better anyway, especially when he already has a World Breaker in hand. So decisions here for Ivanov. He's going to actually play a Tormenting Voice, discarding a Tormenting Voice. He finds a Chandra and a Cinderglade.
He could also play Fall of the Titans for 1 here if he wanted to kill the Eldrazi side and the Elvish Visionary, but I assume he can do a little better than that with the card later. So this will give Niels an opening to cast a Collected Company, but Alexander has both Kozilek's Return and now a Chandra that he can ramp into.
Looks like he's going through his options as far as if he'd like to attack with Tireless Tracker and offer a trade for 2 of the creatures on the other side.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like where you want your Tireless Tracker to head. Though it looks like even if he might want to reduce the impact of a Cryptolith, right? So that would mean that Tireless Tracker is getting in there. So I think Niels will be happy to trade like Catacomb Sifter plus Elvish Visionary for the Tireless Tracker here.
Yeah, it seems fine.
And one reason for Ivanov to do this is that, well, he's got the Kozilek's Return, though. If he sacked the Clue, he could also cast Return next turn without killing his own tracker. So given that Niels doesn't have a Reflector Mage in hand currently, because it's one of the better ways to deal with Tireless Tracker, it is tempting here to just double block. see what Niels ends up doing, especially since he doesn't have a Cryptolith right currently.
Now, does the Fall of the Titans change thing here as well? He
Well-
can't crack the clue and cast Fall
Right,
of the
he-
Titans, so
he-
it just doesn't do enough.
It doesn't.
right?
It doesn't save the Tireless Tracker from
Okay.
a double block, because Fall of the Titan could be cast for 1, and then that would kill just the Visionary. But then, of course, it'd be a 3/2 Tireless Tracker.
Right.
So, looks like Niels is going to take it. So he's
Hey,
looking-
Alexander likes that. He
Well,
almost
that worked
didn't
out.
attack, and now he gets in for 4 and still draws a clue that draws a card he was going to anyway. Is that a Cryptolith, right?
That's a Cryptolith, right? So that's a great draw for
Yeah.
Neil.
Neil says that's why I didn't block, kiddos.
Yep, there we go. So now Niels can play Cryptolith right
And still have company.
attack
available.
with Catacomb Sifter and still have company available this turn. He could actually just play Cryptolith right, play Loam Dried and still have company available.
Woo.
Opening himself up to a sweeper a little bit more, but I don't think that the company's decks can win if it slow plays too much. I think it's just got to kind of run over sweepers and assume the opponent doesn't have them, or assume that they're not going to have them on time.
These are some of the things that are going through Niels Norlander's head about how much to extend into this board, what his options are as far as casting collected company. He wants to make sure that he leaves that available.
Yeah, I think I like the playing the Loam Dread here, even though you end again you are exposing yourself to more of a sweeper, but at least Kozilek's Return doesn't kill Catacomb Sifter, so there is an advantage to having that one in play.
Is he actually?
Looks like he might be casting Collected Company now.
Oh, wow.
Maybe looking for a Reflector Mage main phase.
Oh, let's see if he finds one. He did just cast it.
He's got the option of Reflector Mage, Elvish Visionary, and Duskwatch Recruiter.
Okay.
So if you're main phasing it, then you're almost assuredly going to take the Reflector Mage, or at least that's one of the reasons to main phase it. And then you could take Duskwatch because it goes off with Cryptolith pretty hard, but Elvish Visionary does give you a short-term boost here.
Yeah, if you assume that your opponent has a card like Kozilek's Return, you may want to hedge and just get the Elvish Visionary that guarantees you a card rather than the Duskwatch that has a much better long-term prospect.
And Niels is currently looking at doing that.
Interesting decision there.
So next turn, Alexander is likely going to have to cast Kozilek's Return. He could. The funny thing is, he can actually go Kozilek's Return and then follow it up with a Fall of the Titans for 1, finishing
get
off
rid of the
Reflector
3
Mage
touches?
and Catacomb Sifter. So
And that really makes that Cryptolith right look a lot worse too. That's a lot of value.
yeah, I think,
And it looks like Niels went for the higher upside play with the Duskwatch Recruiter.
which is very reasonable because
Yeah, he can get a card back
he
right
also
away,
knows
right?
deck lists, and Alexander's got 1 Kozilek's Return in his deck.
Oh, he only has the one.
Yes.
Yeah. I prefaced my statement with, if you assume Alex has a Kozilek's Return with only one, I think you would assume he doesn't. So I like that. Also, he does get to activate the Recruiter here, right?
Well, his creatures are summoning
they're
sick.
6, sorry.
So he's only one. He's 1 mana short because
Yeah.
he's got the Eldrazi sign, but
yeah, miscounted.
but now Niels is deciding: do I want to just cast the Loam Dread here? Am I just all in?
Does it change much to have the Loam Dryad?
In the event that your creatures survive, it doesn't change a ton. So I
Might as
think
well not
attacking
then.
for 2 is a little safer. If you were going to cast Company end of turn, maybe you have a little bit more incentive to cast Loam Dryad. But I
Mm.
guess Kozilek's Return is an instant either way.
Yeah. Well, I like your line that you came up with, just completely wiping the whole board here with Kozilek's Return plus Fall of the Titans.
Yeah, that is
That is sweet.
that is what you're looking to do. And so then Niels is going to scry, not knowing his other 2 creatures are going to die, actually. And he sees a Zulaport Cutthroat, which, despite being part of the combo here being, he sees Broodmonitor next, so
Really?
seeing the whole combo.
He's also got the Displacer in his hand.
Yeah, the funny thing is I think there's a good chance he just keeps the Broodmonitor, and then once Alexander finishes off his 2 creatures, is unable to cast it.
Oh, that's brutal. Luis is, by the way, looking at a screen that has Niels Norlander's actual screen up, so he can see and report to us exactly what Niels is up to.
And it looks like Niels does not want Broodmonitor, so he's just looking for a Collected Company at this point.
Okay, so he bottomed all 3 cards. The last one was a land. And here we go. Fall of the Titans to do 1 to each of the remaining creatures and leave Norlander with just what you see in his hand, plus his draw step here and a Cryptolith right on the battlefield. Another Loam Dryad off the top.
And at this point, Niels...
Dump his hand.
Yeah, he can cast all of his creatures, and the follow-up Chandra is going to be pretty brutal, but I don't know that he's got the power to beat a Chandra whether or not he saves a Loam Dryad. He could save the Displacer for later, but I really don't see that being the best path to winning the game.
Mm-hmm. And he doesn't either. He's going to drop to 10 and play Eldrazi Displacer and pass a turn back. And like you said, this is just going to be gross. -3. Wipe your board. I still have a Chandra. And you're on empty?
Yeah.
Wow.
So if Niels draws Collected Company here, maybe he can get back into it. But without one, it's going to be really difficult because World Breaker can come down if Alexander draws an untapped land. Even if he doesn't, he gets to go Hedron Archive plus Tireless Tracker.
Yeah.
Chandra gets to +1 here.
That would put Norlander down to 4. Kill him next turn.
And it looks like Alexander is actually just interested in sacking the clue rather than playing Hedron Archive. So he's going to play Tireless Tracker, then play a land, then get a clue, and then plus Chandra.
So Norlander's going to get 1 draw step here, and it has to be something, I mean, geez. It has to be something unbelievable,
Well,
right?
it was the best card. It was Collected
It was
Company.
Collected Company, okay.
So now Niels has potentially ways to survive this turn. It's just going to be very difficult to actually end up winning the game. So next turn, Chandra gets to plus, and then Collected Company going down to 3, notably because of the Painland. So now Niels has to hit, first of all, 2 creatures. Second of all, Reflector Mage among them or a Catacomb Sifter in order to block twice. And it's not like he wins the game if he does that. He just doesn't lose the game.
He just doesn't lose this turn. Yeah, looking really bad for him.
Yeah, and Niels did hit Eldrazi Displacer and Duskwatch Recruiter, but that's not going to be enough of a game.
All right, Alexander Ivanov wins game 1 of our first match of the finals. We're playing up to 3 matches today to determine our winner. This one's in Standard. The next one, we don't know for sure yet. It'll either be Legacy or Modern, and then if necessary, we'll play the third.
And here's
format.
the full sideboard package. This is how the Rights deck sides against a deck full of sweepers, which is take out the Rights, take out the Broodmother, take out the Zulaport Cutthroats, and take out some of the Eldrazi Displacers, and put in Reality Smasher, Sylvan Advocate, Transgress, and Negate to just go big, and try to win the game off 4/5s and 5/5s with disruption of Transgress and Negate. Meanwhile, Alexander, he gets to board in more copies of Kozilek's Return, and if he wants, he might not even want all 3 because it doesn't kill the 2/3s. And again, his deck is pretty well set up for the matchup to begin with, so I don't expect a ton of big changes. He also is aware of this sideboard plan. It's not only do they have deck lists, this is also kind of the standard plan of boarding in Reality Smasher and Sylvan Advocate. So, given that, Kozilek's Return is a little less exciting.
All right. Alex is a speedy sideboarder. He's always the first one to submit.
Well, he's got his plans ready, and he
Yep.
knows what he's doing, and he just, bam.
Niels is he's going to take a little more time. He knows how important this next game is. If he loses this next game, he's going to have to win back-to-back matches in Modern and Legacy, not necessarily in that order. It's a tall order. It's really tough to win 2 matches in a row.
Alexander
pressure
managed to
here,
do
too.
so last round.
He did. Okay, and we are ready
Very solid hand
for game number 2.
for Niels here. He wishes he had 2 untapped lands so he could go Loam Dryad into Duskwatch Recruiter, but still having company and a high end as well as 1, 2, and a 3 drop, man, that is about as good as you can hope for.
Is he forced to play Evolving Wilds here just to get an untapped land, or does he get to play a Loam Dryad?
He can actually go either direction.
Okay.
The biggest payoff is playing a Loam Dryad, then drawing an untapped land so you can play turn 2 Recruiter. But if you're going to draw an untapped land, then playing Evolving Wilds on turn 1 works out fairly well too, because you can just go Duskwatch Recruiter into Catacomb Sifter. So let's see how much of a gamble Niels has. And he looks like he's going to run the Loam Dryad.
All right.
And this, again, is the higher payoff play, though.
Oh.
Fiery Impulse.
Fiery Impulse off the top for Ivanov is going to make that a lot less good. What a hit.
So, one of the interesting things about casting that Impulse there, if Ivanov waited, it could have impacted how Niels played.
Totally.
Because if Ivanov waited to cast Fiery Impulse and Niels goes, oh, I've got a Loam Dried, land Duskwatch Recruiter, and then Ivanov could have just impulsed the Loam Dried in response to prevent any mana from being added, and then Niels may not have been able to play a turn 3 Sifter. Now, because Niels has that information, he might want to play Evolving Wilds. Turns out he makes the same play either way, but it could. There is something to be said for depriving your opponent of information there.
We're going to see Draconic Roar here from Ivanov.
I think we're going to see Tormenting Voice to try to hit a land drop, likely discarding one of the 7s or 6 or 7 or a Goggles, one of the expensive cards.
Okay, well, he did find a land for next turn. And there's a Reflector Mage, and you do get to see a little of the downside here of this deck as far as mana goes. He's got the Evolving Wilds that he's forced to play, and he can't play anything this turn.
It does flip the Duskwatch Recruiter, though, that it is unlikely to survive because of Draconic Roar. Alexander discarded his only dragon. His Draconic Roar is not on. And you could just let it flip and then decide whether you want to kill it in your main phase.
There's nothing in this matchup that interacts.
No,
Dromoka's Command's the card that comes to mind in Standard, but that's not a card that Niels plays.
Yeah, he could side them in, but
Yeah, he's got a couple in his board.
But I don't think he sided them in this time.
Also, doesn't have white mana. All right, so Draconic Roar. Now that he's surveyed the scene a little, found a nice little target here, he's going to fire it off.
And Evolving Wilds, one of the prices you pay for being 4 colors is having to play Evolving Wilds.
It's tough.
Speaking of which,
Speak of the devil.
Catacomb
So
Sifter.
just going to run out of Sifter here.
Yeah, still a reasonable play because it sets up on a Reality Smasher next turn with the Scion, and then of course you still have the option of casting Collected Company.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, this is interesting. We're actually getting into the middle part of the game where we're going to start to see some of the really powerful plays that both decks have available. You can see that Ivanov also has a Pyromancer's Goggles and a Chandra in his hand. He's a turn or two away. He can play Nissa's Pilgrimage next turn and try to set these up for the following turn. Now he drew another Nissa's Pilgrimage as well. He's got Spell Mastery. He's going to have a pretty loaded hand.
Here's where Reality Smasher really starts to pay for itself. It's playing a 5-drop is hard in such a land light deck, especially when you're siding out Cryptolith Rights. But look at this. What is Alexander going to do?
No kidding. Especially
Chandra doesn't not take out Reality Smasher.
No. Niels finds an untapped mana source here too, so this is going to be 8 damage. Ouch.
That Atarka looking mighty good now.
Yeah.
Reality Smasher coming in, 5/5 Trample Haste, and then if Alexander wants to target it, he has to discard a card as if he's trying to target it with a spell. Pyromancer's Goggles could give Alexander a plan for next turn. He does die to a second Reality Smasher,
Yes.
but it's unlikely he's beating that either.
So if he goes Pyromancer's Goggles, he takes 8 again. He falls down to 2. Then he gets to take out the 2 biggest threats and leave Niels Norlander with still a 1/1.
Well, Alexander gets to cast, if he draws nothing, he could cast Nissa's Pilgrimage and then cast a Fall of the Titans for 4.
Oh, only for 4.
And then
Oh, no.
and then split it up so that 2 copies are targeting Reality Smasher and he has to discard some cards. Or he could
This
go...
is getting tough.
Or he could, if he has 8 mana, Chandra -4, then Fall of the Titans for 1.
Okay. Yeah,
But either way,
even if he
it's-
does, that'll just get him to stable, and he's going to be facing Collected Company and Reflector Mage.
Yeah, either way, the end of turn Collected Company is going to put a lot of pressure on
Yeah,
Alexander here.
for sure. Goggles go. And Niels Norlander knows, especially given it what's in his hand, that he's very close to winning here.
So Niels also has that Westvale Abbey, which at some point could become a threat. But what Alexander needs to draw is a cheap spell here. And even then, I do think that the Collected Company end of turn is going to be difficult. But if Alexander draws an instant, he doesn't have to do any of this until on his main phase. He can just wait. If he draws like a Fiery Impulse, he can just wait, pass the turn, company happens, and then you cast the falls. So Nissa's Pilgrimage happening here?
Yeah, it looks like it.
So yeah, then Fall of the Titans for 4. And again, if you copy it with the goggles, you have a second. You basically get to choose 4 targets, including double targeting the.
So that
The
does leave the
Reality
board
Smasher.
wiped. He's got a couple of forests to discard to it.
Ooh, Alexander trying to pass and see if a company happens. But the problem is if you pass and they don't play company, then you don't have, or use West Valley, you do not have the opportunity to cast Fall of the Titans. So this is actually an interesting game of priority where Alexander wants to pass, and if Neil does nothing, then do it. But Alexander,
he just won't have the opportunity to know if Niels doing nothing. So Niels is doing nothing. Excuse me. So yeah, he's forced to just fire it off here. So his hand is going to be Chandra, Tireless Tracker, and he's going to be facing down. I mean, if he hits lethal, right? Like if he hits any 2 creatures.
or any one creature. Just
Yeah, I mean, there's a few dryads or whatever, but. Hey, discard this, retarget it again, discard my other forest. So he needs just an epic failure from Niels Norlander here on this collected company, right? He just needs him to whiff.
Well, actually, the second copy doesn't look. It doesn't need to. It doesn't trigger the Reality Smasher.
Oh, because it's only when you target it out of your hand. Okay. Didn't know that.
But either way, collected company is going to finish the game.
What if he whiff? What if he misses?
Well, apparently that was good enough. So.
Okay. All right. So that is going to do it for the second game.
The Titans, well, they didn't quite fall. And they get to go to game 3 here, where Niels Norlander's hoping to cast visions of turn 4 Reality Smashers dancing in his head.
Mm-hmm. And we see Ivanov kind of taking a look here. Maybe starting to think about those Reality Smashers and any adjustments he can make to those.
Well, part
He's
of it.
got bigger creatures if he can get to that stage.
Yeah, he's got bigger creatures, but there just aren't very many spells that can deal with Reality Smasher. That's why the card is so good. And then Niels maybe thinking about one of those Dromoka's commands to stop Fall of the Titans. It prevents all damage an instant or sorcery would deal this turn. It doesn't stop a copied fall, so if there's 2 on the stack, you can't stop both of the same Dromoka's command, but still offers you some amount of
What if there's
protection.
4 on the stack?
It's difficult for that to be the case, but yeah, if there's
Okay.
4 on the stack, that is difficult.
Okay. Ivanov once again easily winning the sideboard submit race.
Oh yeah, if that was one of the formats, Alexander would be in the lead by a lot.
Yeah. Okay, and we're underway here. This is the deciding game in our first match of Standard in the finals of the Magic Online Championship.
Oh,
What do we got?
keep one hand for both players.
No, last time you said that one of them mulliganed, so
This is very true.
I don't know if I trust you.
Actually, I didn't say keep one last time. I said a great hand.
You said
last
actually
time.
great, yeah. All right, Evolving Wilds kicks things off for Norlander, and a Tormenting Voice is the
Ooh,
first.
discarding the
play of
land. That's aggressive.
game. Indeed.
So Alexander's keeping his 3-drop, his 5-drop, and his 6-drop, and
Okay.
he draws another land, so he's access to 4 lands here. Niels kept a hand of 2-drop plus 2-drop plus 2-drop plus 2 land, but some of those 2-drops are Elvish Visionary, so it's working out pretty well for him.
There's that Reality Smasher also, and he's even got a Catacomb Sifter. No black mana currently, though.
No, but still, you can just play another Elvish Visionary or play a Duskwatch Recruiter.
Yeah. I
The
mean,
f-
I was trying to set up the turn 4 that you.
The funny thing is, Niels doesn't know this, and I think Elvish Visionary tends to be the right play there. If you played Duskwatch Recruiter there, right now Alexander doesn't have a spell to play. It would flip, and he would have a turn 4 Reality Smash.
Oh wow, that's funny.
I guess the Fiery Impulse would have ended those hopes and dreams.
Indeed, and also killed the Duskwatch. All right. So Tireless Tracker is going to start doing its thing for Alexander Ivanov. who is now out of lands.
Well, it did draw Menissa's Pilgrimage though, so he's in good shape.
Here's an Eldrazi Displacer off the top of the deck for Norlander.
So Norlander has access to. I mean, he has turn 4 Company, turn 5 Reality Smasher here. This is kind of what he's looking for. And he's also not presented Alexander with a good Fiery Impulse target. And
Wow,
Alexander
another
missed
Chandra.
on the land. Had he drawn a land here and gone Goggles plus double Fiery Impulse, that could have been a pretty big impact.
Now, how important are those Elvish Visionaries as it sits? Is it he would just been waiting to see whatever he hit off?
It's
of
more off
Company
what guys hit off Company, yeah.
Okay.
Notice though, even though Niels is able to cast Company and Reality Smasher, he's only got blue and green mana. He doesn't have black mana. He doesn't have white mana. He's playing a 4-color deck. He's not in a spot where he can cast all his cards.
Okay, here's a big collected Company. If Norlander's going to win this match, this is a big part of the equation.
And he did all right for himself.
What did he hit?
He hit Reflector Mage, Duskwatch Recruiter, and Elvish Visionary.
Oh, nice.
With Reflector Mage to bounce the Tireless Tracker. And at this point, I actually would be tempted just to take Elvish Visionary because he's missing the lands he needs to cast some of his spells. So looks like he's just going to go with the Duskwatch Recruiter and the Reflector Mage, though.
All right. This does give him a little bit more power on the battlefield. He gets to attack for 6.
Yeah,
Do you think that Ivanov is considering the Fiery Impulse here? It looks like he's not going to do it either way.
Oh, he could wait on the Fiery Impulse. He doesn't need to do it this instant. I think there's a good chance he Fiery Impulses the Duskwatch Recruiter here.
All right. There's the black mana.
Yeah,
But
and
more importantly, the 5th
there's a
mana.
Reality Smasher.
So this just went from 6 to 11. Maybe back down to 9 if Ivanov uses the Fiery Impulse here to kill the Duskwatch and save a little bit of life. But wow,
No, this is a crunch.
what a huge swing. That's the difference with Collected Company. When he passed the turn, it didn't look that scary. It was 2 Elvish Visionaries. Now,
Yeah,
like,
they've joined forces. Not only has Tireless Tracker been removed from Alexander's side, Recruiter and Reality Smasher and Reflector Mage have been added to Neil's side.
looks like Ivanov's also trying to decide maybe if he'd rather just draw a clue.
Looks like he's just going to draw a card off Clue because he just needs to hit his
Ooh.
7th land for this Atarka now. Or in earlier case, World Breaker, but
Oh, he missed.
so Chandra doesn't quite do it. So let's see.
Now,
So
Chandra -3, though, does leave him alive, right?
it does, unless he's facing down another Reality Smasher, which currently he's not. And I don't know, again, that he can play around that.
Okay. Jeez, 1 mana short. Okay, so he's going to wipe away 4 of the creatures from Niles Norlander, but leave him with the Reality Smasher. And these are outs potentially. Another Reality Smasher will
Discard
do
to
it.
hand size.
Okay, it wasn't, though. It was a Caves of
No, and this
Koilos.
could put him to 1 because he now has Dromoka's command active.
Oh, wow.
But still, Reality Smasher. And Neil's on 6 mana. He could play Eldrazi Displacer or he could play Catacomb Sifter.
And that would mean that if Alexander Ivanov finds a land for Dragonlord Atarka, he could be stable?
Well, it depends. One of the advantages of playing Catacomb Sifter is that you get to keep up Dromoka's command. So you could attack for 5, put your opponent down to 2, and then play a Catacomb Sifter, and then have Dromoka's command up even if something like Atarka happens. There's also some merit to just killing the Chandra because you're going to have lethal on the board either way.
I see.
But it's tough. Niels knows that Alexander doesn't have a land in hand. He's got 7 spells, and Niels has to figure out like how valuable is a Chandra with 1 counter on it. The +1 is basically irrelevant at this point.
Yep.
The 0 ability could draw Alexander 8 new cards, 9 new cards
Right.
even after the draw
So
step.
he's like basically guaranteed to hit a land there and then something big, right?
Presumably. But it is
Wow, this is so
it is
close.
difficult because 5 damage means that if you play a Catacomb Sifter, you've got a lethal 2/3, a lethal 5/5, more than lethal, and a 1/1 that with Dromoka's command is also lethal. You know, I think Alexander's constraint is going to be mana, not cards to play, and I think I'm inclined just to hit Alexander down to 2 and then play Catacomb Sifter. Leaving Dromoka's command up seems really good because it seems like some of the ways you lose this game are like 1-drop into Fall of the Titans or an Atarka which can only deal 5, and you give the Smasher a +1/+1, or maybe Chandra -1, play Chandra -4, and then you still win through that. The fact that you win through a lot of the common lines with Dromoka's command makes me really, really interested in hitting Alexander down to 2 and just playing Catacomb Sifter.
Okay, well, he's decided to play the Catacomb Sifter. That part was pretty clear.
Yeah, and I don't believe he's going to play Eldrazi Displacer here. Tapping out for another creature when you're a sweeper away, a sweeper is the biggest out is not as appealing. Though playing a Duskwatch Recruiter still lets you leave the Dromoka's command up, and given the sacrifice of the Scion, I think that's what he's leaning towards doing. Puts a negate on the bottom.
Sure, he wouldn't mind having a negate in his hand, but having it on top of his library is not doing him a lot here.
All right, I like it. Attacking Alexander down
Doing
to
it.
2.
This is a big draw step. It's a game trail.
That is a small game. Being able having a tapped land is not what you want.
So is this going to force the issue on Chandra?
From Alexander's perspective, I mean, Chandra -1, Chandra -4 clears the board.
Yes.
He doesn't know that Dromoka's command will cause him to lose the game, but I don't know that he can
Well,
beat
explain how that works. He's going to put a counter on the Smasher.
Yeah, he'll
Mhm.
just putting a counter on the Smasher will make it survive the 5 damage. So it looks like that's what he's going for.
Doing that. Deals X damage, everything takes 1, and Norlander is going to breathe a sigh of relief because he is going to win the first match here in the finals.
And had Alexander drawn an untapped land, he would have been able to have a Fiery Impulse up here to finish off that Reality Smasher.
Wow. So close. Just 1 extra damage. And he may have stabilized with that hand. It's hard to imagine that he loses the game going forward, but realities have been smashed. And he shows him the land that was a game trail that entered the battlefield tapped, and Niels Norlander wins the first match. He is 1 to the good here. For the next match, we're either going to be playing Legacy or Modern. We don't quite know yet. It's actually going to be Alex's choice on which one he wants to play. And so we'll get that once he makes his decision. And he better choose wisely because he needs to win that match, and then he needs to win the next match after that if he's going to be our Magic Online champion.
Yeah, from Alex's perspective, he needs to win both formats. So he gets to play both formats in the scenarios where he wins. He just needs to figure out which one is more valuable to be on the play, which one's more valuable to be on the draw.
Okay, and that's a decision that he's going to have to make.
Actually, Alexander was, if he was the higher seed, he was the lower. Did the lower seed win? Because the second seed gets to choose the format, not the winner of the first match. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't matter who won.
Yeah.
It's just the seed. So it's going to be Alex because. You know, actually, I'm not sure if Niels is the one that chose the first match now that you mention it. Yeah.
But I believe Alexander did choose the first match, so I think Niels now has the option.
Yeah, that is a good point. But at any rate, we're going to get that information for you once it is made available to us, and then we'll figure out which one we're going to watch. If it's going to be Modern or if it's going to be Legacy. And that could be the match that decides the winner here, who gets $25,000, the Platinum, the invite to World Championship, the invite to the Magic Online Championship next year. It's such a mouthful, but it's an incredible prize pool here. Brian David Marshall is standing with Niels Norlander right here.
All right, Niels Norlander, 1 match away from being the Magic Online champion, and crucial decision from your perspective made by Alexander Ivanov to start this match in terms of choosing formats. Can you explain the decision-making process on the format sequences?
Well, I'm not really sure what his decision process was, but how I look at it, I really want to play first in Modern with the Infect deck. It's so important. He also plays the aggro deck. You really want to be on the play. So same thing happened here. He chose another format, and now I won the first match. He gets to play the next match. So I choose Legacy as to be on the play, and if I lose for the third match with my Infect deck.
So if you go to a third match, you'll get to be on the play in the matchup you most want to be on the play in.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, Niels Norlander, good luck the rest of the way here at the Magic Online Championship.
Hey there, welcome back to the booth here at the Magic Online Championships. Luis Scott Vargas, Marshall Sutcliffe. We're working our way through the finals here. We just had a quick word there from Norlander. I did want to make sure that we clarified here as well. It is Platinum the winner of this will win platinum. There's a little bit of confusion about whether it was gold or platinum that the winner won, and I just got confirmation from Lee Sharp from Wizards of the Coast. Yes, it is platinum. So
That's better than gold.
it's better than gold, and it does go on top of all those other accolades and the money, $25,000 versus $17,000 for second place here as well. So we just saw Norlander head back into the feature match area where they're going to get ready for their next. All right, it's going to be Legacy is what I'm looking at here. It sounds like, yeah, Legacy is going to be our next format. So let's take a look at that matchup here. What are we looking at here from Legacy for these players?
So Niels is playing Sneak and Show, and he's playing a fast combo deck. He's trying to get out ahead of the kind of more controlling aspect of the 4-color punishing loam deck with an early Show and Tell or an early Sneak Attack. And he's got, Ancient Tomb and City of Traders are going to be very important here as our Lotus Petal. These are all his mana accelerants. He also has Force of Will and Spell Pierce in order to slow down or stop any opposing disruption. And overall, I like Neil's side of the matchup.
Okay. Should we take a look at the other deck? There we go. Alexander Ivanov with this Punishing Knight deck. What's it all about? What should people be looking out for as we watch the match?
So it's a deck that's trying to win via attrition. It's got Dark Confidant to draw extra cards. It's got Punishing Fire to kill small creatures, none of which are present in Niels' deck, by the way. It's got Liliana of the Veil, which can punish an early Show and Tell. If Niels goes Show and Tell, Emrakul go. Liliana of the Veil does stop that. And there are some other cards that Alexander has access to that are very, very relevant, like Green Sun Zenith for Gadoktig. It stops Sneak Attack from being played. Karakas, the land that he can search up, is a huge problem because it can bounce either Emrakul or Gristlebrand, both of whom are legendary, and it forces Niels to have a Sneak Attack in order to get through, because the Emrakul Sneak Attack Karakas interaction is kind of a funny one. You Sneak Attack in Emrakul. Because as Annihilator, you need to bounce it before it attacks, so Karakas bounces it.
Yes.
And Sneak Attack, you just pay another red and put it back into play and immediately attack with it. So Sneak Attack is the answer to Karakas, but it's still a very annoying card for the Show and Tell deck.
How does his deck find a Karakas?
It's got Knight of the Reliquary, so 4 of those can sack any plains or forest to search for Karakas.
And to help him combat here. Are these Punishing Fires just bad?
Oh yeah, they're
They have no
the
targets?
first card that's going to go out. We've seen
Okay.
Alexander sideboard quickly. I imagine the Punishing Fires will be out even faster than that.
Okay. And again, just to recap where we're at here, we're heading into the second match at the Magic Online Championship. It's going to be Legacy. We've already got Standard in the books. That one went to Niels Norlander, who now, if he wins this match, he's our Magic Online champion. Full stop. We're done for the day, and that's going to do it. If he loses this match, then we're going to get another match. It's going to be Modern, and we'll cover those decks if and when that point comes. But for right now, this is big moments for Norlander. We've seen players use this tournament as a jumping-off point for professional Magic careers in the past. Players like Reed Duke is the big name that comes up, and this is a huge deal to both of these players. And you know what? They're ready. Let's head down to the second match of the finals here from the Magic Online Championship. Hello and welcome to coverage of the Magic Online Championship. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas. And we're ready, just about ready. There we go. Now we're ready for the second match of the finals. This is Niels Norlander. He is up a game over Alexander Ivanov, and they're playing Legacy.
Niels also has a turn 1 Sneak Attack. Or turn 2 Sneak Attack.
Turn
rather.
2 Sneak Attack?
Yeah, turn 2 Sneak Attack off Ancient
With a
Tomb and Lotus
Grizzlebrand
Petal.
in hand?
But if you look at Alexander's hand, he could play a turn 1 Dark Confidant, turn 2 Gadoktig, and Gadoktig prevents Sneak Attack from being cast. It's an expensive enough card. So both players have very good draws here. All Niels needs to draw is just another Lotus Petal, and then he's golden.
Well, we'll see if he does that. There's Dark Confidant. So the engine is online for Ivanov. And he drew another Lotus Petal. Oh, my goodness.
See?
Wow.
All right. Well,
So
there
what
we go.
happens here? Walk us through this.
Niels casts Sneak Attack and then just passes the turn. He doesn't have a red to activate it. Alexander flips, and then next turn Niels gets to sneak in Gristlebrand with that Scalding Tarn.
Does he have Maelstrom Pulse in his deck?
In his main deck, he does
he
not
found
have
an
Maelstrom
Abrupt Decay.
Pulse.
That's not good. The mini Maelstrom Pulse is not going to get the job done.
Yeah.
So we're going to see a Griselbrand on the battlefield on turn 2 here?
We will, which doesn't end the game on the spot, but is very, very effective. Because what will happen is Niels gets to, first of all, he's gonna gain 7 life at some point in the turn when he attacks. So he's gonna be up to 25, 24 if you count Scalding Tarn, which means that he's gonna be able to draw 21 cards if he wants to, and he doesn't even necessarily need to draw that many. That lets him find enough stuff to sneak attack again, though Lotus Petal is really the card he's looking for. So if he finds Lotus Petal and Emrakul on his first shot, he just wins on the spot.
So how does that work? He draws before combat with his Griselbrand, looking for a red mana source to put in another threat and attack with both.
Yeah, that is his ideal. Even if he can't win this turn, he can just gain a bunch of life and then set it up so he has the perfect hand of 7 cards.
All right, so we'll see what he hits here. This is going to be exciting and potentially very quick game here. Niels Norlander finds the second Lotus Petal. Now he can play his Scalding Tarn, get a red mana source, put in Griselbrand with Sneak Attack. Let's take a look at Sneak Attack for those of you that don't play as much Legacy, or Cube for that matter. You can see that you get the creature in for just 1 red mana. It does go away, the end step. Okay, so he's going to draw cards now.
He found a Lotus Petal, so now he's got a lot of incentive to draw 7 more, going down to 1, because he just wins if he finds an Emrakul.
And he did. There's an Emrakul.
Well,
Look at this. He's going to play a Lotus Petal. He's going to make a red mana, put an Emrakul into play. Talk about your super friends. And that's the game. Niels Norlander wins game 1. And we could be 1 game away from crowning a Magic Online champion. If Niels keeps drawing like that, it's going to be over very quickly.
I mean, the deck's great when you play turn 1 Sneak Attack and win on turn 2.
Oh, my goodness. Wow, that was exciting.
It was. The good news for Alexander is his deck does get a bunch of cards post-board. He does get to take out those Punishing Fires and bring in cards like Thoughtseize that are very effective. Phyrexian Revoker can name Sneak Attack, for example. So, and Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, can make all of Niels' spells cost more. So he's definitely improves more post-board than Niels does. Niels has access to not as many effective cards. He's not really looking to play like Blood Moons and whatnot. Niels does have a Pyroclasm and some Sudden Shocks, which can kill cards like Thalia or Gadok Teeg, but still,
Yeah,
Niels
Dark
is just
Confidant.
trying to rely on speed more than anything else.
I'm a little disappointed, Luis, that playing turn 1 Sneak Attack wasn't in LSV's keys for Legacy, but
Well,
I guess you can't get them all.
That is definitely a good strategy to win with. But
I mean,
I wouldn't
it
say
looks pretty
I
good
wouldn't say
there.
it's a key to the format.
I think Niels might disagree with you.
And once again, Alexander is done sideboarding. Niels looks like he might bring in the Blood Moons after all. So he's looking to make it so they do neutralize Karakas, which does help.
Norlander's just a straight up 2-color deck.
Yeah, he's 2 colors and he's got a bunch of Lotus Petals and he can play a bunch of basics. He's heavily favors these white border basics here. Also cards like Spell Pierce, maybe not as exciting as they would be against a deck that has a lot more spells because Alexander's deck is low curve and has a lot of creatures. And Niels bringing in Sudden Shock and Pyroclasm as well.
Okay, so this is huge. This game could decide our Magic Online Championship winner. If it's going to be Niels Z-Boy, that's Niels Norlander on the bottom side of your screen. Does he have the hand to do it here, Luis?
Well, Niels' hand is good. It's got a Force of Will. It's got some blue filtering, and it can potentially play like a turn 2 Blood Moon if he draws a basic island. Don't really want to play Blood Moon when you don't have any. It looks like Alexander kept his opening hand, which is turn 1 Thoughtseize, and then if he doesn't draw a land, he doesn't get to do anything on turn 2. Because Mox Diamond is a mana source, but it requires a land for you to discard to it. So Alexander basically just kept 1 land Thoughtseize on the play with a bunch of 2-drops.
Okay.
Granted, if he draws a land, his hand is very good because he can discard it to Mox Diamond and immediately loam it back and then play it, so all his mana problems are solved. But if Alexander doesn't draw a land here, then things could be very difficult for him.
Now, is there any incentive here for Norlander to use Force of Will on this Thoughtseize? Is there something that's worth protecting in his hand that much?
My inclination is to say no, because you have to throw away like a Gitaxian probe to do that. I mean, he could want to protect Blood Moon, but the thing is, Alexander's playing a bunch of Mox Diamonds, so Blood Moon is already a little less effective than it would be. But it looks like Niels is interested in protecting that. He could also be protecting the Gristlebrand.
As his one big threat, he knows that he could be one cheat effect in.
Oh, and he pitched the Preordain, so he just wants to see what Alexander's got going. Interesting. So,
Well, that's really interesting. Oh,
well,
he
that's
did find the island you mentioned.
yeah, and that's important because that Scalding Tarn getting an island means casting this Blood Moon is not bad. Niels gets to see. This is going to be great because Niels
Yeah.
gets to see this hand, and now if Alexander plays a land on turn 2, Niels knows exactly how unlucky he got.
So now wait a minute. We were already talking about Alexander needing to draw a land here. If he doesn't, and Norlander gets to play that Blood Moon, I mean, is he just shutting the door at that point?
Well, no, that's the thing, is that Mox Diamond is so good against Blood Moon, and a second copy of Blood Moon here is not a
Ooh.
great draw for Niels. Alexander
Wow,
missed.
He did miss though.
See, because that Mox Diamond means that even no matter what land Alexander draws, he's going to be able to discard it to Mox Diamond and still cast Dark Confidant. He might not be able to cast Gadok Teeg. Knight of the Reliquary gets worse. It's not like Blood Moon does nothing,
Right.
but Alexander can still cast some of his spells.
Yet as it sits, he can cast none of them.
Niels was close to a turn 1 Blood Moon. He can now play the Blood Moon without using his Lotus Petal, but in order to do that, he'd have to crack Scalding Tarn for an island, or a volcanic island,
For a volcanic
and then
island,
not be
which then
shut off of blue.
becomes a mountain.
So
yeah.
if Niels wants to cast this Blood Moon, he's going to have to use his Lotus Petal or be stuck without an island, neither of which sound super appealing. My guess is that he'd rather use the Lotus Petal than be stuck with an island in play, or a volcanic island in play.
Doesn't have much going on else. His Gitaxian probe got used up. He ended up pitching the Preordain, so he doesn't have really a whole lot of action here.
And that's one of the reasons that I favor just letting the Thoughtseize resolve. I mean, he did draw a second Blood Moon, but I don't value Blood Moon quite as highly here, though it is going to make Alexander's life a little more difficult.
Okay, there it is, Blood Moon.
As it turns out, Blood Moon isn't impacting anything because Alexander hasn't drawn a second land. He can't cast any spells.
Right.
Now all non-basic lands are mountains.
So, for example, this, you can see grayed out Swamp Forest is just a mountain now. And that's true also of this volcanic island, but as we know, Norlander actually doesn't mind having some red mana around. The Ancient Tomb no longer produces 2 mana. It is also just a mountain.
All right, well, there's a land. So now, despite doing nothing on turns 2 and 3, Alexander's very much in this game. He can still just cast Dark Confidant or Thalia here, and Niels' hand is just double Gristlebrand. Niels' hand doesn't do anything.
So he's going to start feeling some pressure from these small creatures, and there's a show and tell.
Yeah, but Thalia makes it cost 1 more.
Right, so he can't actually cast it yet.
But
The Ancient Tomb only makes 1.
this just means that Niels is 1 land away from casting Show and Tell, putting in Gristlebrand. It does let Alexander put in one of his cards too, whether it's Knight of the Reliquary or Gadok Teeg, but Knight can't get Karakas because of that Blood Moon.
Right.
So Niels just wants to draw a land.
He
to another
finds
Blood
another
Moon.
Blood Moon, and he can't even cast it. He's going to pass the turn back. There's another couple of lands.
Some more mountains.
He found, in game 1, Niels Norlander found exactly what he needed on top of his library to go off on turn 1. All he needs to do is find a land here.
Though drawing a Pyroclasm or a Sudden Shock would also be fantastic. Also any like Preordained Ponder, Brainstorm would be good. So Niels has a lot of live draws. In fact, he has very few dead draws.
Okay. He's also got a reasonable amount of time here. Like, he's taking 4 here, dropping down to 10. He'll get next draw step and probably 1 more after that.
Yeah, he's got 2 draw steps.
Okay. Let's see if he can hit. And also, I'm curious to see what Alex plays here. Is
Can't
this-
really play.
Can he play anything?
He can play a Lifeline
Alone.
alone,
Okay,
but
but
he
he's gotta
can't really
pay 3
play
for it.
anything.
Yeah.
Anything that impacts the board. All right, there's the Scalding Tarn. So now Gristlebrand's making an appearance here.
All right, so he finds a land. It's a mountain, as it were. And here comes Grizzlebrand. going to see a Knight of the Reliquary or a Gaddock Teague for Alexander Ivanov, but I got to say I like the Griselbrand side of this equation.
Yeah, we might just see the good old like Griselbrand just brawling.
Yeah,
Because at this point,
pretty reasonable blocker as it turns out.
and at this point, spells cost one more. So because of Thalia, so Griselbranding for a bunch of spells isn't as good. Just attack for 7, attack for 7. It's possible Niels could just attack, pay 7 life, find a Pyroclasm, and then just wipe Alexander's board, or find a sudden shock to take out Thalia. But either way, Griselbrand in play is very effective here.
Niels Norlander is just waiting for Ivanov to decide which creature.
You know, the thing is, because the Lifeline Loam brought back the Windswept Teeth, Knight of the Reliquary is not very different from Gaddock Teague. They're both just 2/2s.
Mm-hmm.
And Gaddock Teague has an ability, but not one that's coming up this instant.
Can Griselbrand help Norlander win the Magic Online Championship? Looking good for him right now. He's already up a game and a match.
So it looks like Alexander chose to dredge Loam in order to grow the Knight of the Reliquary, and it grew it to a 3/3.
Okay. Which isn't really going to be effective here. But once Norlander starts attacking with it, I guess you could crack back for more. Still, you can't race a Griselbrand, right? How do you raise 7 lifelink?
Not very easily. Yeah, Blood Moon is doing some work, though. I'm sure Niels would have chosen not to draw all 3 of them.
Indeed.
Right, so it looks like Loam is getting cast here. It's not even clear that you want to get... I think according to Alexander's plan, he's just not going to get back any lands with Loam. He's casting it to get 0 lands so he can dredge it to eventually get the Knight of the Reliquary bigger than the Griselbrand. It's a long-term plan. Let's
What
just
does
put it
that even
way.
do?
Well, eventually it could attack, but it's going to
Like-
take so long. It's going to take
Yeah.
at least 2 more turns, and that's
It's
when
not like it can block
and that's
it.
with hitting 5 lands from
Right.
those dredges.
Caracas is a dead draw here thanks to the Blood Moons as well, which would have been pretty nice given everything else, but I am curious to see how Norlander decides to approach this turn after he attacks. I'm assuming he's attacking here. And then does he draw or not?
Well, it's actually difficult because right now...
Oh, I guess he can't, can he? Because he would go up to 17 if he draws cards back down to 10, but then that Life from the Loam could actually put lethal
Yeah.
up.
The only advantage to drawing is if he finds Pyroclasm or finds another removal spell. It
Right.
might be worth just casting Ponder and then
Just paying the price here.
paying 2 mana to cast Ponder.
Yeah.
And then if you see what you hit, since Niels can just start attacking with Griselbrand, it is a 3-turn clock, maybe 2 turns depending on how Dark Confidant goes. But if Niels just sits here, then that knight will eventually get bigger. So Niels doesn't have an easy decision here either. I mean, the Blood Moon is restricting his options a little bit, and also the Thalia, of course, is being quite annoying.
Yeah. I think I liked your play. I think because I think that attacking with Griselbrand seems correct. That drops Alexander down to 13. Whoa, he's drawing 7 in the main here.
Well, one advantage of drawing 7 is you could choose to not attack.
Mm-hmm.
And then Griselbrand blocks, you go up to 10, so you're pretty safe there, and you're hoping to draw a Pyroclasm or maybe like a Show and Tell into Emrakul or something like that. Show and Tell in the second Griselbrand, you could give your Griselbrand Vigilance,
You could.
but the downside is that Alexander gets to put another card into play.
Yeah, and in this case, it would probably be a Knight of the Reliquary, which
Yeah.
those are the bigger issue, especially given the line that Norlander's taken here of not attacking.
So Ponder really
Yes.
just looking for Pyroclasm here.
He does have an additional land in hand, so he could cast it.
So he found Sneak Attack, Sudden Shock, and Lotus Petal.
All right.
So that's interesting. So he can keep... If he keeps both of them, or keeps all of them, he can keep and play Sudden Shock this turn. Still can't kill the Knight of the Reliquary.
Is he more concerned with Thalia or with Dark Confidant here of the creatures he
Thalia
could
is
kill?
more annoying, especially since Dark Confidant could actually help his clock. Because there just aren't that many cards that Alexander could play. It's funny, if that Mox Diamond weren't around, then Alexander would have no chance here. Lotus Petal is not terrible, especially once Thalio's gone, because it just gives you access to blue mana and lets you maybe play 2 spells in the same turn. But Niels actually didn't draw all that well off that Gristlebrand. He drew a bunch of mountains, a Gitaxian Probe, which you can't really afford to pay the life for, and some Show and Tells, which he has nothing to Show and Tell into. Force of Will also not that exciting.
Yeah, interesting decision. That was the big decision point, right? Do you attack with Gristlebrand, or do you start drawing cards? He decided to spin the wheel. It's pretty safe, right? It's very unlikely that he dies as a result of that play. He has a great blocker with Gristlebrand, but he is down to 3.
Alexander wouldn't mind drawing some Punishing Fires now. You could actually cast them under the blood.
Yeah, that is funny. Assumption is that they're out of his deck.
So it looks like Niels is going to keep those cards. I think keeping them is good because you just have so few cards in your deck that actually do anything, and Sudden Shock is one of those live cards.
Okay.
And you could attack, and you go up to 10, and then you'd be facing... You wouldn't die next turn, because if you Sudden Shock the Thalia, you take 3 plus from the Dryad Arbor plus Dark Confidant, 3 plus from the Knight, plus whatever gets dredged off loam, so a max of 9.
Right. Okay, so Gristlebrand in.
Yeah, I like making progress here.
I do too. Oh, man, you can sense the tension too if you take a look at the players on the left side of your screen. They are in battle mode. Oh, it actually took out the Dark Confidant here.
So he's looking at restricting Alexander's draws here.
Are there cards that he's worried about at this point?
There
He's got the deck list. So
yeah, there aren't a ton that are relevant. But I suppose that he might be worried about more Mox Diamonds, because a second Mox Diamond would actually be very annoying.
Okay.
He just has to discard the hand size, though. He's got so many Blood Moons. So I think Alexander's just going to keep dredging loam, and he hit 2 lands. So now he can attack for 8.
Wow.
But he's not going to be able to play anything else this turn. He can just play the loam for 0.
Funny, too. There's a Mazavith for him as well. Those Blood Moons have done work. Norlander taking a big hit down to 2.
I think we're going to see Gristlebrand as Vigilance here.
I think you're
like,
right.
You're going to see Show and Tell, put in Gristlebrand. Even though if it gets to put in a Knight, you get to block a Knight and gain 7, going up to 16. Because remember, you gain 7 off the attack here, and that should be enough. It's a very funny play, but we know that Niels is drawing a sneak attack here.
Mm-hmm.
Though actually, that's even better. Yeah, since we know he's drawing a sneak attack, he could just attack and then just play sneak attack and say go.
And he can
Well,
just leave. But if
the
he's forced to block with
the downside of that is if he sneaks and blocks, then he loses both Gristlebrands.
Yeah,
Because he has to sack the first one, then the second one dies to sneak attack. So I actually think we're back to attack you for 7 down to 6. I go up to 9, cast Show and Tell, put in Gristlebrand. Hope you don't put anything too insane. He's got to be worried about what Alexander can put in.
Oh, he's got to be. Now, is there a scenario where he makes that play and Alexander can hit off of the dredge from the loam, assuming he puts in the Knight of the Reliquary, and actually makes those big enough to force a trade or a chump block with Gristlebrand?
Well, one thing is that this is artifact, creature, enchantment, or land. It's not Planeswalker, so you can't put Liliana the Veil into play. That would be something he would be worried about. If the Knights hit 2, if he hits 2 lands on loam, they trade with Gristlebrand. If he hits 3 lands, then you actually lose the Gristlebrand. So there is a risk here. This isn't a simple game for Niels.
Man, this has been a super intense game. Of course it is. With everything on the line, the players are playing very carefully, as you can see.
So Niels really looking to figure out. He knows his top card is Lotus Petal for whatever that helps. The funny thing is, if he could draw before attacking, he might have a chance of drawing Emrakul and finishing the game, but he doesn't have the luxury of doing that.
No, he's just down to 2, so he is going to attack. Alexander Ivanov is going to drop down to 6 life. That puts Niels Norlander up. He's going to go for
the sneak attack. So now Niels is essentially planning on... Basically, if Alexander misses on
Like if he
Dredging Loam?
completely whiffs, then that's it, right?
Then Alexander can't attack for enough to force Niels to put in a Griselbrand. If Alexander hits with lands, then you get to put in Griselbrand, you block, and you could actually draw cards still, and then hope to hit
Right.
Emrakul next turn.
And he
Or so hit a
did
land.
hit. He hit a land. You can see
So
in his
that's
graveyard.
a 6/6 that attacks for 9. So when Alexander attacks, Niels has to put in Griselbrand. He has to select the current Griselbrand in play to get sacrificed. Block with the other Griselbrand. He can then draw. He does have a life cushion to draw cards because remember he's getting 7 life going to 16 off of lifelink, and he's blocking.
And he's only taking 3 here.
And he's blocking the knight. So he gets to block the knight.
And then he'll still have a sneak attack in play to try to find
Take 2
another.
first strike going to 7. Take 1 normal going to 6. Gain 7 going to 13, and then end of turn. Well,
And that does it.
all right.
Niels Norlander wins the match. It looks like there's a concession down there, and we have a champion here in Seattle. Nielsy Boy, as he's known on Magic Online. Niels Norlander is your Magic Online champion this year. Congratulations to him. Fantastic stuff down in the feature match area. An abrupt finish, but wow, that was incredible stuff. Super intense, and that's going to do it for the finals here from the Magic Online Championship.